What's up, everybody? It's Tuesday night. It's the Vish Kumaran show, and you know who we're with. The man, the myth, the legend. That's Larry Krueger, at Sports Larry K, as he's known on Twitter. What is the origin of at Sports Larry K? Were people gonna confuse you with the other Larrys out there who are not involved in sports? So you had to make sure you were Sports Larry K.
It was just at the beginning of Twitter, and I was just, I was on KMBR, and I was just trying to think of words that maybe I wasn't really sure how it was going to work. And so I just kind of figured maybe people would search under that. So I just put it all together. And then when I left KMBR and I had to get rid of the NBR, which was a big part of it, which I lost my blue check and then regained it. But yeah, so I'm just Sports Larry K.
What was it like being one of those plebs like us without the blue check? Did it change anything for you? What is it like having that blue check mark? Like, how do you feel every day? Because let me tell you, Larry, if I woke up every day and my Twitter name had the blue check mark next to it, I'd feel 10 times more confident, 20 times more confident. The
Exactly.
world couldn't tell me anything because I would have that blue check mark next to my name.
Exactly. It makes you a much better person. It makes you superior in every single imaginable way. No, I never knew. Now I guess you can buy it. You can absolutely buy it.
Yeah, you can buy it, and I think that's where it's
you gotta
lost.
Think about it, Vish. You gotta think about buying that love.
No, I can't buy it. I look, Larry. We spoke about gambling once, and I kind of gave you a description of how cheap I am. Now, if you asked me to pay $8.99 a month for a free app, I could never stomach it. I couldn't part with that kind of money for that. Like, come on, we the value, Larry, the value.
So what are we talking about? Busy day in Ninerland, man. I thought the Lynch dialogue. I'm so glad that we're talking. I thought, excuse me. I thought the Lynch dialogue was pretty interesting.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I want to start. And I had a tweet about the Lynch dialogue because there was a particular quote that stood out to me from the Lynch dialogue. And it seems like now nobody else really cares about that quote. But he was speaking about Trey Lance today, right? And he had a lot of really, really positive things to say. He reaffirmed how much the Niners believe in Trey Lance, how good Trey Lance's character is, and all of those type of things. But when he started talking about his injuries and he said that, Trey Lance needs to play. And I think what he said there was obvious and honest. But the second part of what he said was what really piqued my attention, Larry. And that was the second part. And I thought it was a very honest thing from John Lynch, but I also thought it was a very revealing statement. And he said that I don't know. He needs to play for Trey Lance, right? He needs to play. I don't know when he will get his chance to play, but he needs to play. And I was a little taken aback by that quote, Larry, because I thought in a lot of ways the 49ers were committed to him as the starter this offseason, especially because Lynch himself spent a good portion of this morning's or this afternoon's presser talking about how uncertain and hazy the situation was surrounding Brock Purdy's elbow and how a lot of it is that they're just praying and hoping that, the swelling goes down. He has the surgery next week. Everything goes okay and he's back for the season. But I thought that was a really, really good opportunity for Lynch to just confirm and commit to Trey Lance right there. He could have said, we're excited to see him come back this offseason and get his opportunity. But instead he said, I don't know when he'll get his opportunity to play. And I don't want to read too much into the quote because he said enough good things about Trey Lance there. But to me, what that did reveal is that the 49ers are hoping Purdy comes back to start the season. And if Purdy's healthy at any point before week 1, he will be the starter. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I don't know. That's not kind of what definitely I got the fact that Purdy is he's the guy, he's the incumbent. If anybody's going to inherit the job, it's going to be him. Okay. So that's clear. And I didn't really need anybody to tell me that, I can we all saw that. But they did invest a lot in Trey. The thing on
Right.
what he said about Trey is he's got to play. That's the biggest challenge. We have, he says, we have a team that's ready to go. He has to
Right.
get out there and play.
Right.
And then he went on to say, we believe in who he is as a person, who he is as a quarterback. But that sounds to me like the Warriors sounded a couple weeks ago on James Wiseman. Like, hey, you know what? He's got to play, but he's not getting minutes here, and we don't know how he's going to develop. Like that sounds like trade clouds starting to form. He's got to play. That's the biggest challenge. Well, wait a second. Brock's hurt, and um, and then why is that a challenge? Trey's the only quarterback you have, and he's out there on the field right now playing. So he's got to play. That's the biggest challenge. We have a team that's ready to go. We have a team that's ready to go. And the implication is clearly Trey is not ready to go. Am I reading that wrong, or what? Are you not getting that out of that? That's what I got out of that. I got out of that he's saying, clearly Trey's got to play. You and I have said this. Everybody knows Trey knows he has to play. He has to play this year. But then he goes on to say that's the biggest challenge. What's the challenge? The challenge is if he's not ready to play. And then he says, we have a team that's ready to go right now. Well, that the implication is that Trey's not ready to go right now. And I mean, maybe I'm overreading that. Maybe I don't know.
I think you're reading it the same exact way I am, and you're just choosing a different quote. By the way, I misquoted the quote itself in the beginning, and it's later on in the press conference. He basically says that, Brock got the opportunity to play. He said similar things to what you pointed out, right? He said Brock got the opportunity to play and he grabbed it and he played great. Trey needs to get the opportunity to play. We very much believe in him, but we'll see how at some point we get him that opportunity. And to me, it was like, what do you mean you need to get him that opportunity? Like, you drafted him third overall 2 years ago, and he's only played 4 games. Isn't he still in your long-term plans? And that's where I completely
It's basically
agree
like I'm going with Brock. That's basically his way of saying they're going with Brock.
And to me, I thought it was a ringing endorsement that they're going with Brock right now, and Trey's going to be the number 2, and something else is going to have to happen for him to get that opportunity, and he's going to have to seize it when he does, but he's not going to be given that opportunity this offseason. Brock Purdy is.
Yeah. It really sounds like it now, and we don't even know the extent of Brock's surgery. We did get a definitive date. It's going to be next week, but we don't know how he's going to come out of that surgery. I don't know. It's interesting. Then the other thing Lynch said was he was pushed a little bit on the quarterback, and he said, we're going to, what do you say? We're going to look at it. He said,
he wanted to insulate the quarterback room.
He said we may have to look in the quarterback market. So I think it will be interesting to me. I think they'll bring in that third quarterback in a relatively short amount of time, and that third quarterback should tell us a lot, because if it's a third quarterback that really could be a 1 or a 2 in some estimation, then maybe there is a trade coming.
Right.
If it's a quarterback that's truly a 3, then maybe not. Maybe not. That's how I would read it. So, I mean, I would love to see Marcus Mariota. I'd love to hoard athletic talent.
I just can't see them trading him, Larry. For
He's cut. They cut him today.
Or no, not Mariota. I'm talking about Lance himself.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's a tough trade. It's a tough trade.
Here's why, Larry. Here's why I can't see them trading him. Look at their history, right? Last offseason, they were pretty hell-bent that they weren't going to trade Jimmy Garoppolo for less than what his value was, right? They weren't going to just give him away to get him off the roster because of the way things worked out with his surgery and all of that. Like, they wanted to maintain his value because they felt like they had a valuable asset. Do you think that team would then turn around and just take the sunk cost? Because, again, we don't know what you could get for Trey Lance, but I'm assuming it's not anywhere close to the 2 first-round picks that you gave up for him. So I can't see them delivering that sunk cost. And then what could have possibly changed in 2 years and 4 games, Larry, right? You had a plan for him that plan, they seem to say, included him sitting for a year. So you had a plan for him in 2022. Unfortunately, that plan didn't work out because he got hurt, 50, 60 snaps into the season, but not that much could have changed in 12 months that now you're trading him. Like that plan, I don't see why that plan still can't be applied here, especially given the uncertainty around Brock Purdy. Do you really think they would trade him?
Yeah. Yeah, I do. Here's why. John just laid it out there. I mean, he just laid it out there. He's got to play. But Brock is their choice at quarterback. I think we both have got that thought. So then he's talking about going into the quarterback market. We'll see what kind of quarterback he brings in to complement. But it's almost like he's saying it's almost like he was preparing us for a trade, because he's kind of saying, well, Trey's got to play. That's the biggest challenge. Yeah, that's the biggest challenge because Brock's outplayed him to this point, and Brock will be the starting quarterback going into next year in the minds of the players and the coaches and probably most of the fans. So then
I think they're wrong to be there, honestly, Larry, just because of the uncertainty surrounding his arm. Given the uncertainty surrounding that surgery, when he's going to come back, how good he's going to be when he comes back, how much pressure do you want him to put on him to rush that recovery, given the serious nature of the injury? I think that in a lot of ways, to me, when John Lynch talked today, and I wish he was pressed a little bit more and asked a little bit more to be a little more specific with some of the vague things he said about the quarterback thing, like we need to look at the market more. Like, do you guys not have a plan here? I felt like, Larry, a lot of the plan is just hope. It's in a lot of ways, it's just hoping and praying everything goes right with Brock Purdy's arm. He has a great recovery and he's ready to go at the start of the season, and he's good as he was last year, and he's ready to go, and he's playing as well as he was last year. I don't know if you gleaned that at all, but that's really what I noticed. And in a lot of ways, I think it would be the wrong approach, and I wouldn't expect that kind of approach from two people who have proven to be as prudent, logical, analytical, and intelligent as Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch have while running the 49ers.
Yeah. I mean, it's a really interesting situation, isn't it? I mean, because in some ways, and John references kind of off the start that the league may change their rules in regards to the third quarterback and the need to have a third quarterback. And
Right.
I kind of think the third quarterback is going to be what I envision, which is all the quarterbacks have to be able to ascend to the number one job and lead you to victory. That would be my new standard. I think I thought kind of laid out that exact same thought pattern by kind of addressing the fact that they need to be in the quarterback
Right.
market, despite the fact that we know they have two. I agree with you on the Trey Lance trade. It's really, why would they trade Trey Lance? The only reason you would trade Trey Lance is if you didn't believe in his talent, or as John Lynch laid out here, and it really is clear. I mean, let's lay all the cards on the table. Trey Lance's development, if it's going to take, what's a reasonable amount of time for development? Year and a half? If it's that, I think 49er fans would be too impatient to endure it. I don't think 49er fans, nor do I think the roster, the front office, the head coaching staff, the media, nobody's going to be satisfied with anything less than Lombardi trips. Now, or trips to the Super Bowl. Now, can you do both? Maybe you can do both. Maybe you could just stay with Trey and make, but if they don't believe in him, or if they feel like there's flaws that they've seen in his game, then that would make them want to trade him. If they don't see those flaws in his game, then I say don't trade him, because he's a great kid and he'll eventually, be a really good quarterback. And I think it's just going to take some time, and it's going to take development. And, you have Brock to play right away. You can play Trey slowly off the bench and slow play it as you whatever. The only thing is, I didn't love the dual quarterback plan, you know what I mean, of running quarterback power. So I'm always a little skeptical when I hear, well, he's a dual quarterback. What he was is a hurt quarterback. You know what I mean? He needs
Yeah.
to be a healthy quarterback. And I'd like him to just play from the pocket and just scramble. I don't understand why that's not enough, why it has to be these built-in quarterback keepers. But these guys know more football than I do. I will say this, though. I think this is really interesting because to me, it sets up a lot like James Wiseman. Lynch saying he's got to play, and that's a challenge, almost as if to say, well, he's not going to play here. He's going to sit behind Brock. And then when you say somebody's got to play, that's almost like you're trying to prepare the fan base for, hey, we had to move him because he had to play. And you know what? If I was Trey's family or Trey's agent, and I would kind of push this really hard too, because think about it. If this is your son or if this is your client, you want to do the best for him. The best for him is not to ride the bench in San Francisco behind Brock Purdy, if that's what the 49ers vision of the future is. The best for him is to be the starting quarterback in a brand new, fresh situation and be on the field. So I don't know what that means, Vish, but I would not be surprised at all if Trey's, side was like, hey, we got to play. And what if he doesn't win the starting job? He wants to play. So what's going to rule the day? Than being with the Niners or playing if Brock is better than Trey.
And I want to go deeper into this conversation because I do think there's a lot that needs to be we need to go back and analyze and put some things together to why we got here and where we got here with Trey Lance in 2 years and 4 games, because it's been quite a journey to take on a player who's really played just 4 games, and from a personality, character, intangible wise, has really been everything the 49ers drafted, according to him, everyone and anyone that he's been, that type of a human being. So it's been quite the journey. And so I would like to go deeper. Before we do, just put a pause on the conversation, is Caesar Alcazar was so nice earlier in the show to donate. And he said, with Steve Wilkes as the defensive coordinator, do you see a more aggressive style of defense since he's been known to like blitzing? Larry Krueger, what do you think?
Really depends on the personnel, but I would say yes. Yes. Yeah, I think you're going to see it dialed up faster. I think you're going to see an array of blitzes. More, I think you're going to see more, corner blitzes, slot blitzes. I think the Niners, of course, Kosaric is still here. And, I think he's the guy who really loves to get these guys moving up front. But it really comes down to the personnel. I would imagine the 49ers will add either by signing or drafting at least 5, maybe 6 defensive linemen. And I want to see what they look like, what their makeup is. And, are they interior rushers? Are they combo rushers? Are they edge rushers? Are they 2-down guys to replace a Kinlaw and a Ridgeway? I want to see not just which D lineman they're intrigued by, but what the skill sets are and how it all fits together. Because right now you got some guys, but you got some holes.
I actually I'm gonna disagree. So the 49ers were about middle of the pack in blitz rate last year. If you look at D'Amico Ryans, a majority of their pressure package comes on third down, right? On first and second down, they're pretty disciplined. They're gonna sit in quarters coverage, they're gonna play cover three. They're very disciplined, they're gonna play very, very solid. And then third down is where the creativity comes. And I think it's gonna remain similar in the exact same way, where on third down, we're gonna see the pressure, we're gonna see the different looks with the double A gap, the double mug looks with both linebackers walked up over the center. So then you kind of mess with the protection and force the quarterback to make a decision on which way you're sliding protection, because you don't know who's coming, who is. Sometimes you bring fours, sometimes you bring four, drop one out the other side and have a little fire zone, sim pressure. So I think that's where their defense is going to remain. John Lynch actually touched on this today, right? He talked about how he was drafted in Tampa Bay in 93, and his defensive philosophy comes same place as Kyle Shanahan, from Tony Dungy and Monty Kiffin and that entire defensive staff with Mike Tomlin, Raheem Morris, Gus Bradley, all in Tampa Bay. And what was that defense known for, right? It's the origins of the Seattle scheme. They played that Tampa 2 They rushed 4 and they played coverage right behind it, and they played Tampa 2 very often, and they were known for lining up and playing a very similar thing constantly, but being very good at doing it. And from that standpoint, if that's the 49ers core defensive philosophy, which it is, I don't think that's going to change even with Steve Wilks. So I think we're going to see a lot of the same defense on first and second down. On third down, when they let the defensive coordinator get a little more creative, like you said, Larry, we might see some more nickel pressures. We might see some more slot blitzes, corner blitzes, stuff like that. But I think in terms of the actual blitz rate, Larry, I think it's going to remain the same, which is going to be around middle of the pack because they're really only going to do it on third down.
There's an
Also, I
awful lot
want
of the only thing is, I mean, you can't speak in definitive terms about a front that has 7 free
that's
agents. I
true.
mean,
That's
there's
true.
more free agents on this front than there are guys coming back. So, and there's so many. I'll say this: one of the things that I love about football, and the different in college football and trying to judge the draft is that so many different schemes at the collegiate level, so many different ways to utilize guys of different sizes. And it's like you got to figure out which guys not just are productive with the motor, but which guys are truly tough, which guys fit your scheme, which guys can, are going to be there when you pick, so it really is intriguing. I'm, because the one thing you can say for sure, Vish, is that we see it every year. The prices in the free agent D line category get crazy because everybody goes into their offseason. We got to improve our pass rush. So like
but
anybody veteran established off the edge, any tackle who's a true pass rusher and can stop the run, those guys, I mean, everybody just gets paid
I just
tons.
feel like if we're talking about the 49ers though, right? We're talking about a team that philosophically we know that that's where they're going to invest. And so I can't imagine the 49ers going into next season without having some sort of a rotation that goes 8 or 9 deep, and it's going to surround 2 exceptionally good players, one who's the reigning defensive player of the year in Nick Bosa, and then of course Eric Armstead, who I would argue is one of the most underrated, very very good players in the sport of football. So I think that's where I think you're absolutely right in terms of the personnel. We don't know, and it's tough to predict that with 7 free agents there, and especially when you're expecting them, because like you said, Larry, actually the personnel point you made is absolutely fair. Because if their rotation goes only 6 deep on the defensive line, now our good friend Caesar's question does become answered, and the 49ers do have to blitz more because your personnel package
Right.
has you there. But
Right.
I think that where I'm kind of giving myself a little bit of a leeway here is I'm operating under that assumption that because this team to its core philosophical beliefs believes so much in having this depth in the defensive line, and then they have those 2 special players locked up under contract. I can't imagine that. I think for the 3rd straight year they'll manage to find the depth pieces to have an 7, 8, 9 deep rotation on the defensive line. To go back to our quarterback
Yeah.
conversation, though, Larry, I did want to pull up this comment because I think Paul Perryman was absolutely right, and I wasn't able to highlight it when we were talking about Trey then, so I just wanted to highlight it now, right? It makes no sense to trade a quarterback, especially when they have 0 healthy. And Trey Lance himself isn't fully healthy yet. He's in the process of getting there. But I also wanted to go back to 2 years ago with the quarterback situation, right? You talked about how you were upset with how they used Trey Lance,
Yeah.
and they kind of used him like a dual threat. They talk about him like a dual threat, but at the time he was drafted, actually, Shanahan pushed back at the idea that he was a dual threat, right? He called him a quarterback who was capable of doing things with his legs that would give them an advantage at certain points. Given that, Larry, and given the underdog fantasy quote that was kind of circulating Twitter this weekend, with Adam Schefter saying the 49ers thought that Trey Lance was the most pro-ready quarterback. I think the pro-ready was from a standpoint that they thought he was the most pro-ready in terms of processing and being able to reproduce the playbook. I think they thought he was the most pro-ready as a professional in terms of being able to actually live the lifestyle of what goes with being a professional athlete and taking care of your body and doing everything in terms of studying, working out, and everything that goes into that. That's a tough transition for anybody. I'm going through the student to professional transition right now in life. Oh gosh, it's hard to be a productive adult. I still have moments of childishness, I guess you could call it, Larry. But but anyway, so I know
You'll
what that
get through it.
transition
You'll
is
get through
like.
it, kid.
Exactly. And then I think they thought he was the most pro ready from the standpoint that he had done translatable things in Shanahan's system. And the thing that was always intriguing with Lance, right, is you had this insanely small sample size, but then within this sample size, you saw very, very subtle and sophisticated quarterbacking that actually happened. And I'm going back and looking at my notes on Trey Lance from the time as I watch these quarterbacks and try to improve my process. Hey, what did I get right? What did I get wrong? And one of the things that made Trey Lance such an enigma is the little reps we had, right? We have him taking a 7-step play action drop, great step up, hitch in the pocket, throwing an accurate ball, you know, or coming to his second read, doing very, very subtle things as a quarterback, whether it's manipulating the pocket and stuff like that. We had it in 317 throws, and it was hard to kind of put stock in there. And what I think is that the 49ers really thought that the level of sophistication that was there, I think they really thought he was pro ready. And I think that's where when people say if they wanted a dual threat, why didn't they take Justin Fields? Because I don't think they thought they would need to use Trey Lance the way they did in the start of 2022. And what I mean by that is use him as so much as a part of the run game, right? Where you have this zone read principle and you're fully embracing the zone read principle with their quarterback. I think they thought in certain situations it would be cool, like red zone, third and short, fourth and short, to have the quarterback running element. So now you can create a gap advantage going 11 on 11, but then you would operate the normal Jimmy Garoppolo offense the way it is, right? The boots, the play action, the nakeds, the quick game, everything would stay the same because I think they thought that's who he was as a quarterback. And so when we look at it like that, I think it's really, really important to see why we are here now. Why is this conversation with Trey Lance changed so drastically in 2 years when the guy has played just 4 games and there's been nothing wrong with his character? I think it's because of that. And now they've admitted that to some extent, right? They told Albert Breer that they felt like he wasn't as good as a runner as they thought that he was. But
or
I
a
think
thrower.
overall, I think overall I don't think he was maybe as far along or as sophisticated or as refined or polished as maybe they originally thought he was. And I think the only thing they thought he needed was to get adjusted to the speed of the game, which is what they tried doing, right? By giving him scout team reps where he could just go out there and play, get used to understanding what his athletic limitations are, what he's physically capable of doing on an NFL field against an NFL defense. And then, of course, just getting comfortable with how fast windows close against NFL defenses and all of that. But I don't think he was exactly there. And I think that's why the offense was seemingly, where he was used as a dual threat quarterback. I push back against the sense that, he was running a completely different offense. He was running the same offense, but it felt like they were using the zone read principle on just about every run play, which meant that I felt like they were trying to use his legs as a way to, while he's not exactly where they want him to be as a passer, give them the best chance to win.
I mean, there's so much there. I will say this. When people talked about the advanced, he was so advanced, maybe he's not as advanced as we thought. What they were really talking about was the play action game from under center,
Right.
the ball handling, what we call ball handling, the play fakes, selling play fakes. I mean, Trey is enormously advanced compared to most young quarterbacks in all that action.
Hmm.
But that's not all of it. I mean, it's just because you're advanced in that doesn't mean you're an advanced thrower. He's got arm strength and arms, incredible arm power and speed, but the accuracy is inconsistent so far. And we've
So,
seen that in
Larry,
practice.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I just want to add this because I have a
Yeah.
theory about exactly what you're saying too.
Well, I was
I
just saying
think
that he's advanced, but doesn't
because
mean you're
no,
advanced in
I
every
agree with
phase.
you. I agree with you. He was advanced from a mental standpoint, but from an actual like
He called a lot of
execution
his
of
own
throwing,
plays.
right? The execution of his throwing, it was inconsistent, and that's where he was a hard evaluation because you had 317 throws, and each throw was weighted so highly because the sample size is so little. Man, you could be blown away by the 6 great throws you could have seen, or you could have been totally turned off by the 6 bad throws you saw. But the reason I want to tell you about my theory about the throwing, I want you to go, so I'm sorry for talking over you here. Is that I think that they looked at the quarterback they had before, who we've heard them rave about what his throwing is, right? They rave about Jimmy Garoppolo, the way he throws the ball, how aesthetically clean it is, how mechanically clean it is, how pure it is, how quick his releases. They've raved about it, right? Shanahan, Mike McDaniel, these guys have called him one of the best throwers they've ever seen, one of the best throwers in the world. And mechanically, in terms of how quick his release is and his upper body mechanics, in terms of the way he creates rotation and torque, he is a textbook, like about as good as it gets. At least that's what the mechanics experts say. I'm just quoting them. When it comes to being a thrower, I think they looked at Garoppolo, but then they looked at his flaws and they thought maybe, because I've heard Shanahan in the past talk about the importance of a natural thrower. And then it was so shocking that he took a thrower who wasn't a natural thrower with the third pick in the draft. I think he looked at Garoppolo and said, well, he is a natural thrower, but look at his flaws in terms of being able to process, in terms of being able to make quick decisions, all of that. Let me get this really, really smart guy who has that. Even if the throwing's a little bit inconsistent, the consistent decision making, my ability to scheme it up, and how good our weapons are should bail us out. And I think that might have been part of their thinking. What do you think of that theory? And continue on your entire take from 2 years ago.
Well, no. I just think that that could have been their thinking. I mean, I just think that the same things that I see, they see, which is that you got this kid who's very, very, very athletic, very smart, very competitive. Football's important to him. And he's just the hardest working, most sincere, quality person you ever met. And
Right.
everybody in the town in Marshall, Minnesota swears by him. And then you meet him and you're like, you know what? He's solid. You meet his family and you're like, man, he's solid. I just think the Niners were wowed by, by the traits and then they took him based on the traits, and they kind of dared themselves to be able to develop him. They knew that he was kind of an underutilized player, but I think they probably saw Mahomes, and um, I still think it's all in there. But I think John Lynch, what he said today, makes it sound like he's setting us up for a trade, because he's got to play, and that's the biggest challenge. That sounds like why is that a challenge? You have a quarterback job, and your quarterback's having surgery, and he may not even be ready till week 1. Why is that a challenge? I don't get that. So I will say this though. I love what I saw from Marcus Mariota and Smith's offense against the 49ers with what did they have? They had a good O-line. They had 2 ordinary runners and some nice weapons, but they were young, and I think they were dinged up, right? Pitts, I think, was dinged up. And they played ball control against the 49ers, ran it at their non-DJ Jones front, converted on first down, stayed on the field, dominated time of possession.
No
He
Armstead
completed
or Kinlaw in that game
94%
too.
of his passes. And I'll tell you, I don't know if you remember that game, but there were several third downs where I'm looking at Mariota and I'm looking at the formation, and I'm thinking to myself, like I'm D'Amico Ryans, and I'm thinking there is a tremendous amount of pressure on this defense, because they got into 3rd and short all day, and it's like, and there's Mariota with the ability to like hand it to Huntley, who's just going to dive forward, or like keep it and run, and he's fast. So I don't know if I could get Mariota to add to this group, I think that's the guy I would get. And if I'm looking for a way to utilize Trey, I think I would show him that Atlanta game and just be like, this is what we want to see. I mean, this is what, in some ways, I think Trey could be a better version of Mariota, a better version of Jalen Hurts, potentially, if he, got down that road of development. But I mean, as that kind of pressure player on 3rd down where he can read it, you beat you with his arm, or keep it on a play fake and maybe bulldoze you. But I'll tell you one thing we learned first so far, Vish, he's not going to run around you, and he's not going to Lamar and sidestep you and you just miss. No,
Oof,
he's
you
big
made
and
me miss.
physical,
You got me there with that Juke Krug.
like that. That was the,
Yeah,
that was my
I'm
Nick
wearing shoes.
Sirianni against the, hey.
I'm wearing shoes, and I was just shaking out of them. No,
You got left.
yeah. Kevin Crittenden, by the way. Very, very appreciate the donation. Very kind of you. And he said Vish Kumaran plus Larry Krueger. The very Krugmaran show. Pretty clever. Pretty
Listen,
clever, Kevin. Pretty clever. Gotta give it to you.
Kev, keep the
Okay, so
day
here's my
job.
thing. Here's my thing with Mariota,
Yes.
Larry. If you're talking about coming here on the league minimum as a veteran quarterback, I won't push back against it. I think he would be a
What is the
nice
league
third
minimum?
quarterback option. I think the vet minimum is about $1 million. So if you're
See, maybe
saying
you could
that,
go a little higher because your top two guys cost nothing.
right? For Marcus Mariota, I don't know because look, you keep
I'd
going
go
back to
3
that
million.
game.
I'd
You
go
keep
3
going
million.
back to that game, Larry, and I would like to say that I was one of the few people at the time who said, "Hey, this is not going to be a good game for the 49ers. No Eric Armstead, no Javon Kinlaw in that game against that offensive line, and how creative Arthur Smith is in the run game because he is." When you're talking about run game coordinators in the NFL after Kyle Shanahan, you could probably fit, Arthur Smith right after him in terms of the most creative and best run game coordinators in the NFL. They don't do so much in terms of how many different runs they do, but they're always very, very well prepared to run what they run against any front. We saw that with Derrick Henry, right? How many times did they run inside zone with Derrick Henry, but they always had it blocked, right? Against so many different looks, so many different fronts, got so many different big plays out of it. But you keep going back to that game, Larry, with Mariota, and he was
That was
14 for
93%
15.
against the number one
14 for
D in
15.
football.
Larry, the
Number one D in
throws he was
football.
asked to make, Larry. The throws he was asked to make, Larry.
I'm just saying. I mean, why would you? I mean, he's a great kid.
Why did he get benched, Larry?
Well, I mean, he didn't play that well in every game, but I mean,
Yeah, he
imagine
stinks.
a guy who's that big, that athletic, that smart, and that's your third quarterback with all these weapons. I'll take my
He can't.
chances.
He
I
can't
think the
throw.
Niners, I mean, what do you got to do to win to beat Philly? You got to get a big time run game. What are you going to do to get a run game? You got to have everybody has to be accounted for. That's what makes Philly's run game so tough. You got to account for Hurts. So I like the idea of Brock can run. I like the idea of Trey can run, and I like the idea of Mariota being able to run. So that's number one. Number two, you bolster your offensive line. The Niners already have the best blocking backs and receivers and tight ends maybe in the league. Just get some road graders up front, get a quarterback with some mobility, and spend the rest of your time on defense.
Yeah, I look at Mariota as a third quarterback, nothing more. To me, he's not a starting caliber quarterback in the NFL. I guess he's an okay backup. I wouldn't appreciate if Mariota had to play quarterback for the 49ers for, 6 to 8 games. I think a lot of bad things would happen in that situation. I didn't think highly of his talent when he was at Oregon. I was
He
shocked.
won the Heisman.
Jason White won the Heisman.
Fish, you might have to go. I think you might have to go. I mean, I know I might be too rah-rah on him, but you might be too anti Mariota. I think you need a Mariota refresher.
Look at Larry, that Tennessee team. Look at what happened when they put Ryan Tannehill in the game instead of Marcus Mariota. Their entire offense opened up when they actually had a quarterback capable of completing throws 10 yards plus down the field. Marcus Mariota was awful on some of those Tennessee teams that made the playoffs. He's struggled
Beginning
as
with
a
his
passer
second
his
wait a
entire
second. Begin
career.
this is directly from his bio. Beginning with his second season as the starting quarterback for Tennessee, who had only won 5 games in the previous 2 seasons, Mariota led the team to 3 consecutive winning seasons, the most since the team was known as the Oilers, and then he was benched and replaced
Larry,
by
one of those
Tannehill
years he threw
halfway through
9 touchdowns
2019.
and 17 picks and they made the playoffs.
He's not bad though. I'm telling you.
9 touchdowns and 17 picks. I know you just went down to his stats in his Wikipedia. You read that
Okay,
season.
this
I
is what
see
he
that
was in
smirk on your
college. This
face.
is what he was in college. 36-5 with 105 touchdowns and 14 picks. That's what he was in college. Here's what he is in the NFL. 34-40, but still with 92 touchdowns and 54 interceptions.
What if I read you AJ McCarron or Matt
I think
Leinart
the
or
reason he lost
Jason
out
White's
to
college
Ritter was
stats?
the knee,
Larry's in the
wasn't it?
NFL.
I thought he
Huh?
had a knee issue.
No, they
He had
were that team
15
was
touchdowns and 9 picks this year. He threw for 171 yards per game. He added 438 yards on the ground. He played 13 games.
Yeah, he
In
had a knee
December, he
issue.
had surgery to repair chronic knee injury that he'd been battling.
He got it after he was
Falcons didn't
benched, though.
discuss it.
He got benched, and then he left the team, and got that surgery, I think, to fix his knee. I don't know exactly what happened, but I know that they first benched him for Desmond Ridder, which then set the next set of actions, which included him getting surgery on his knee, and I'm not shocked that they released him. But, Larry,
This guy
gosh,
was a big time
I
player, man.
love
He
I
won
love the idea of
multiple
him as
bowl
a
game
third quarterback.
MVPs. I mean, he was pretty big time, man.
Yeah,
All I'm
there's a
saying
lot
is,
of great college players,
but he's
Larry. He was
6'4",
one of them.
220 and fast, and he's a good kid. What don't you like? What's not to like?
Jake Locker was 6'4", 220, fast and a
I know, but
good
you're talking about the
kid.
third quarterback.
Oh, I like him as a third quarterback.
That's what we're
Nothing more,
talking about.
nothing else. $1 million.
We're just debating on how much money to give him. You're saying the
We're just
minimum. I'm
debating
saying
on him
maybe
in
$3 million.
general, actually. We're just debating on him in general, and it's probably going to be funny because if the 49ers do sign Marcus Mariota, gosh,
We're bringing this one
he's
out.
going to despise me, yeah.
I'm putting this out there, man.
Hey,
This
no,
video is going to go wall to wall.
it's not personal, actually, Mariota. It's more about how much Krug
Vish
seems to believe in
Kumaran
you.
attacks Marcus Mariota, who's a good Samaritan too. He's a truly good
Gosh,
guy.
Larry, why do you believe in Mariota so much?
He completed 93% of his passes.
14 for 15, Larry.
Vish, he was like, I think he was like 18 of 19.
14 of 15.
Was it?
Yeah.
You sure?
I'm 98% sure now. I will
I
go
think it
check
might
the
have been
box
like
score.
17 of 18, man. Anyway, either way, he put a lot of pressure on the 49er defense. And when I watch Hurts and when I watch Mahomes and when I watch Josh Allen and when I watch Lamar and when I watch the best of the best quarterbacks in the game today, you have to have that element of RPO, I think, in your game. You've got to be able to freeze those linebackers. You've got to be able to run a little bit of that, especially in short yardage. It lends itself to it, especially with teams going for it more on fourth down. I just think that
I gave him
how
too
is
much
Kyle
credit.
Shanahan ever going to win a Super Bowl? He's going to win a Super Bowl by running the football and play action pass off of that. He's not going to be able to 7-step drop it. He's going to have a strong, dominant defense, dominant special teams, dominant run game. That's what it's going to take. So to me, Mariota, I saw the pressure that D'Amico's defense felt. I felt it. I was doing the post game
the
on
scheme, Larry. The scheme
what's
is
that?
very good. The scheme is very good. That's why they had some relative success with
Their
Desmond
back
Ridder,
sucked. They had
and
Huntley,
they still managed to run the football, Larry.
I know, that's
Arthur
what I'm
Smith is
saying.
a
It's
great
like I think
coach.
Mariota might be able. You give Mariota all the weapons the Niners have.
Larry,
I'm
by
just
the
saying,
way,
as
he
a
went
third
13
quarterback,
for 14.
I really.
He went 13 for 14 in that game, not 14 for 15 even. I gave him too much credit. He was 13 for 14, Larry.
That's still pretty damn good, though.
As a third string quarterback,
what do they convert on third down?
You go talking about
what do they convert on third down in that game? Do you have the box there?
I mean, sure,
they had to have converted like 65%, 70%.
Larry, if you
all I'm saying is
to Mariota,
I like if you want to say no to Mariota, fine.
They were 9 for 14. Very, very good. Very good.
I'm
in for Mariota.
That is the quarterback down. Why do I like him? That's why I like him.
Because he converted.
I saw it.
He was 9 for 14 on third downs in
against
a game
the
that they
Niners.
won at home, off of a Jeff Wilson fumble return for a touchdown that gave them 7 points as well.
he shut down the number one D. He did it against the number one D. I just like Mariota. I think he's a good prospect.
Their entire interior defensive line.
I think he's a guy that is the perfect kind of guy for them, in that he needs them, they need him. But he doesn't have tons of options, but he does have a little bit of upside. It's a little bit of a gamble, but I'll say this. How would you have felt if Mariota had been coming in for Brock Purdy against the Eagles? I would have felt like, all right, this is going to be tough, but we got a shot here. So you would have
still felt it was going to be tough. Here's the thing,
it's going to be tough. You're third string on the road, NFC Championship game. It's going to be tough.
I agree with you, though. I think him as a third stringer is fine for $1 million. Great. Marcus Mariota is your third string quarterback. I'm not embracing anything more than that. And if you're asking me how I would have felt, I would have felt a little bit better than Josh Johnson, but I would still be crapping my pants thinking, yeah, this game is pretty much screwed for the 49ers because Marcus Mariota is playing quarterback for them.
Yeah, but as far as third quarterbacks go, it's probably the best in the league.
Maybe. I'd give you that. Depends.
That's really
Depends.
what it's about. I mean, here's the thing. If you're the 49ers, you cannot keep losing out on winning championships because of the quarterback. So it's happened to them every way imaginable. So now it's just like, hey, how about this? The league's probably going to put in a third quarterback and they're going to have some different rules. Invest in the third quarterback. Get a good third quarterback. And I would even like to have a good fourth quarterback. I think you can protect those guys. I think you can protect a couple guys a week. If you took you know, I don't know. I like the kid Toon from Houston quite a bit. If you took him in the 5th round or something like that, you put him on the practice squad, and then you had Mariota and Trey and Brock, I think that's as good a quarterback room as there is. I like it.
I'd take any quarterback room with Mahomes or Burrow or Allen or anything
Well,
like
the
that
talk
over it.
is that
But
maybe the Chiefs may go for Wentz to replace Henny, who just retired.
that would be them. And guess what? They
That'll be
probably will
smart.
get some sort of in 2 years. I promise in 2 years, Wentz will ride that bench for 2 years, look good in a couple of preseason games. In 2 years, people will be talking about Carson Wentz as a starter again for somebody. And they'll be like, hey, look at Geno Smith, his career research, and he didn't get as many chances as Carson Wentz. And someone will talk themselves into Carson Wentz again, and Carson Wentz will likely disappoint them again.
I liked Carson Wentz for a while,
I did
but
too.
you know what? There's that there's that unspoken thing about all quarterbacks, and that is, some guys push the envelope and turn it over. Other guys don't push the envelope enough and are captain check down. You have to push the envelope without turning it over. You
Right.
got to drive the team and the ball down the field, but not turn it over. And the thing with Wentz is he's made some of the dumbest plays, some of the worst football plays I've seen.
Yeah,
But he's beat the
100%.
Niners a couple times,
He
and
played phenomenal.
yeah,
The throw to
he's looked
Travis
good. He's
Fulgham in
looked good.
2020,
He's not
the
old.
throw to the moon ball he threw to Travis Fulgham, as good a throw as there is. He is a
Yeah,
phenomenal
played great
talent.
against the Niners, and
I used to
Shanahan
like
likes him.
him. I used to like him as well. And Shanahan likes any quarterback that's
But
big and
he's talked him
right,
up
but he
publicly.
likes all the quarterbacks that are big and they played in an under center system in college. He's always a fan of those quarterbacks, right? But that's besides the point. But he has talked. He's been extremely effusive in his praise of Carson Wentz, and I was actually a big Wentz fan as well. I put a lot of stock into tangible things. They're a little more logical to me. His size is real. His arm is very real. He's got a creative ability to make plays off schedule and off structure. He is a great athlete. I think the biggest thing with Wentz that I've learned is there's also a tangible feel and instinct to playing quarterback, right? There's a poise, there's an ability to keep your poise and confidence and know what play to make, right? It's what you talked about, that he doesn't seem to ever know like what play he needs to make in the moment. He makes some of the dumbest plays, especially when you throw in the moment in the world. I think it's that. His poise, his confidence, everything becomes erratic. And with that, his accuracy becomes a little bit erratic and all of that. Whereas you contrast him to a guy that I just finished watching in the draft, Bryce Young, like, shoot, you take the size away from Bryce Young and the fact that he gets hit maybe a little bit too much for my liking for a guy with that size. He has every single thing you could ever want in a quarterback. Like he's the antithesis of Wentz in a lot of ways, right? He doesn't have this size, this athleticism, these tangible abilities, but he's got so much accuracy, so much poise, moves so well within the pocket, has such a feel for where people are. And Wentz just doesn't have that, Larry. I think that's what I ultimately come to. And I think that he's never going to have that.
I just think that he's not taking very good care of the football. So he pushes too hard. I was talking about that ability. Like I think Brock Purdy right now is dialed in almost perfectly in that he takes chances, but he
Right.
takes care of the football. I feel like Wentz is dialed up a little too much to take chances. And that all being said, I don't think he's a good fit here because I think he's a number 2 quarterback. If you could be the number 2 quarterback in Kansas
Yeah.
City, why would you be the number 3 quarterback in San Francisco?
I also think he's a difficult fit because when you look at who he is physically, Larry, still, gosh, I feel like you put him on the practice field, he could probably still impress a lot of people with who he is physically. Don't you think, like, when you see Carson Wentz, you see his size, you see the way he throws it, like, you see how tough he is, the way he stands in the pocket, like, he's kind of a tough guy to have as your number 2 quarterback because he'll always leave you wanting, and we know there's a leadership question mark, but he's also so talented that he could cause a little bit of dissonance there because other sans maybe 10, 11 quarterbacks in the NFL, Wentz would be more talented than a lot of different starters.
Well, I wouldn't worry about that at all.
Oh,
I mean,
okay,
at
okay,
all.
okay.
Um, if he's, I want the best guys all on my team. I hear you though, as far as not every quarterback trio fits.
Right.
And what's his, this is not a dictatorship. This is somewhat of a democracy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everybody's got an agent and everybody's got a little say so in their own career. And, you know, he's not going to be happy as the number 3. Not that you ever want a guy that is, but you know what I'm saying? It's like his expectation is to start some games and get an opportunity to start and be in a good situation. The Niners are a good situation, that's for sure. And
Right.
they've got great weapons, a terrific defense. They've been in the championship game, the NFC championship game back-to-back years now. They've been to Super Bowls recently. So they're always going to be a destination, but I don't know. It would really be about how bad does a particular quarterback want to come play for Kyle Shanahan? How bad does somebody want to force themselves
Right.
to a good situation? And we saw in the NBA with Dante DiVincenzo. He played in Milwaukee. It's a great team. He goes to Sacramento. The
It
culture
didn't
was
work.
not good, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, I just want to be on a good team. So once you're on a good team, and then you go on a bad, I think sometimes guys just want to be on a good team. So maybe that will help the 49ers attract somebody better than they should get, a quarterback.
Yeah, I think you have an absolute point there. And I think while we're on Wentz and we're talking about that Wentz example, um, I do think that if there's a place, like if we're gonna give Wentz a chance at resurrecting his career, at realizing, the immense physical potential he has, like shoot, you gotta think he comes here with Shanahan, these weapons, all of that. He gets an opportunity to play. Is there a better spot for any quarterback, honestly, in the NFL in terms of weapons, coaching, defense, the way how good the system is, all of that. Shoot, I can't think of a better spot, Larry.
Well, Kansas City might be a better spot because, Mahomes plays all the time, reads, the top of his game, play caller.
Oh, I was talking about to
Um,
actually play, to actually play.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, well, I don't know. I mean, I mean, you probably are going to play here, I guess, because guys get hurt. But I mean,
Oh
or you could
gosh.
look at the odds and say, well, guys have gotten hurt here. Maybe they're due to be healthy. I don't, I really don't know, how exactly to read the injury bug. But I do think the 49ers should be very serious about the third quarterback. To me, the one thing you absolutely just can't let happen again is you can't get into the championship game and not have a quarterback on your bench that you can win with. Um, and it's important. It's probably as important as the other needs, which are offensive tackle, defensive end, corner,
Yeah.
free
Free
safety.
safety.
John
Jinx.
Johnson got cut today. Kyle Posey wrote a really interesting piece about the free agent, John Johnson now. He's interesting because he's, 27, pretty productive, very versatile.
Two,
Um,
3 years removed from being one of the best safeties in football. When he was on the Rams, he was an awesome player.
and he's not
But
old.
yeah.
So that might be a good fit. And that's only if they don't bring back Jimmy Ward and Tayshaun Gibson. Those are the other guys. They got some decisions to make at free safety.
Kevin Crittenden, again, really appreciate the donation, says, very Krugmarin. I like that you actually believe in the take you described. If somebody has all the takes, they truly don't have any. I don't
Oh,
particularly understand that last statement, but it's rather
oh.
poetic. So look at
Confucius says.
that. So, Larry,
Yes. Fish.
I'm a little bit intrigued to hear what you think of this, okay? If I had to ask you, you were John Lynch, and I had to ask you, Larry Krueger, what is your number one worry about the 49ers this offseason? What would you say it is?
Hmm. I think it has to be the defensive line. Defensive line, because you've had your defense on the back seven is solid. The difference between your team and the success you've had on defense is all predicated by the depth and the talent on your line up front. And you've done a poor job in some ways of handicapping who the effective players were. And you kept Kinlaw over DJ Jones, and now you've got a hole. You've got Kinlaw on the roster. DJ Jones is in Denver. You can't stop the run up the gut, and you don't have a replacement because Ridgeway's a free agent. So, they've got some holes to fill. And the big one, I think, is who's the anchor point two gapper that can hold the point up front. And I would say I would go strong after Puna Ford, because I don't want to mess around with anybody that can't stop the run. It's got to be somebody who can really stop the run. And I would try to take him away from Seattle. I think it's important. I think it's important because then, you know what? If you have some big bodies up front and you can really stop the run up the middle, like DJ did, now you've got a lot of freedom to, draft and sign after the draft an assortment of outstanding pass rushers and just throw them all together and see what you got. You know what I mean? And that's what I would do. I mean, they're going to have a young group up front unless they sign a bunch of free agents. So, I'd love to see them plug the hole with somebody who's a true strength, a true pillar in the middle. And I think Puna would be strong against the run.
So I absolutely agree with you on getting Puna Ford and the importance of reacquiring depth in their defensive line. But if I'm John Lynch, I'm not necessarily so
You're not worried
worried,
about it?
yeah, about getting depth, just because I feel like that's something that I've done well the last 2 years, and I have no issues doing it. If I'm John Lynch, gosh, the number one thing I'm worried about is attrition. My team has played nearly 20 games in the last 2 years and made the NFC Championship. Monumental achievement, 2 years in a row. I've had this core of players that has really been together for 4 years now, and three of those seasons has gone to the bitter end. Um, at some point, you have to think that the the time is running out on this core. Like this could be the last season of truly great football from this entire core of stars. And I would say if we're naming them, it would be Armstead, Bosa, Fred Warner, George Kittle, Debo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, Kyle Juszczyk, Brandon Ayuk, these type of players. I think that the fact that you have 8, 9, 10 players of this caliber, it's really special. It's what's made them have so much success over the last 3 years, despite having arguably the most turmoil in the league at the quarterback position. Now you're telling me that, they've gone through these 3 years. All these guys have been paid. They're not necessarily young anymore. I would be scared of attrition catching up with my football team fast. And I'd be scared that this might be my last year. And I think John Lynch is scared. I think oh gosh, I'm going to turn it back to the quarterback discussion. But when we bring up quotes like it's going to be a challenge to play Trey Lance, I think that's John Lynch being honest to you, that he thinks that this core has maybe one or two more runs or one or two more chances left in it, and that this team might not be able to afford to use one of those chances playing a quarterback that might or may not develop in that year. They have to go with maybe a little more of a sure thing. And I think that's where the honesty of those quotes comes from. But damn, Larry,
It's true,
I
though.
think I
He
think
really
that's
said it. You
Yeah,
just said it
I think
yourself. I
that's the
mean,
worry.
he's so that I mean, so but then you ask me about trading Trey and act like you just can't possibly imagine it. And you've got a guy in John Lynch who's got a very valuable asset, and they could get a significant amount for Trey. These people
I
are talking
don't
about
know
third
that
or
though.
fourth round draft choice. That's crazy talk. There's you're talking about a really good young prospect. There's no way that you're talking about a third or fourth round pick. But
I
if that was the
Do you
case, that
know
makes
that
it an
though,
easy call.
Larry? Do you know that though?
Yeah, I do. I do. I mean, I feel like I do. I mean, I'll just put my name out there and say I'd be shocked, absolutely floored if Trey Lance were traded for a third round pick.
I
I would be
agree with you
absolutely
there.
floored.
I agree with you there, but I think I would also be floored if he got traded for a one. I could see him getting traded for a two, and the reason I say a two is because Josh Rosen was traded for the 49th overall pick after a pretty crappy year one in Arizona to Miami. And Miami was kind of a desperate football team who was like, all right, we'll take whatever at quarterback and see what happens. So I could definitely see him being traded for a two. A one makes me a little bit I don't know about that just because there's four probably first round quarterbacks in this draft, I would say for sure. And then there's like five or six veteran guys that are starters that are going to be available in free agency. And given that, the supply is outweighing the demand with quarterbacks this year, I can't imagine there being such a bidding market for Lance to get a one. But I still feel like they have financial flexibility and stability there to just keep him and just see what happens. Because again, they still believe in his potential. I feel like how could this have changed so much in 2 years and 4 games? How can you still not think that, okay, in the situation that this guy has to play, he might have the chance to still become who he has to become? Now, we can't actively give him that chance right now because we have a quarterback on our roster who played so well that we can't replace him at this point. But that quarterback can get injured. That quarterback can come back from injury and not be the same. That quarterback can have a 9-month surgery that keeps him out for a long time. That quarterback can come back from injury and not play the same way he played before. And with all of those possibilities, why wouldn't you keep this young, talented prospect who, might be a precocious talent? We don't know. Certainly they felt that way when they drafted him. That's why they gave up the capital they did at the point they did to draft him. And so when you still have this level of a belief, and you had this level of a belief 2 years ago, how can 4 games make you want to get rid of this and stop this plan that you had when you drafted him? Like, I understand you have to pivot. I understand things are fluid. I understand you have to pivot based on what happens. And what happened is Brock Purdy played phenomenal for 7 games. But there's so many unknowns, even with Brock Purdy, that you got to feel like, shoot, Lance's chance could be right around the corner. And like, why not? If we believed in him, why let some other team find out? We can find out whether he is or isn't that guy when he does get that chance. We just can't give him that chance today because Purdy is there and he sees that opportunity and he deserves that opportunity when he does come back. Did that make sense?
Yeah, but you just don't know all the dynamics at play. I mean, you could have an agent and a family saying, "Hey, Trey needs to play this year," and putting a lot of pressure in the situation. One way or another, Trey needs to be on the field this year. I mean, things like that. Trey wants to be there, and he's a great guy. So I can't imagine that he's forcing his way out or making any kind of ultimatums. But John just said it. I mean, he just said it. I mean, it's like once again, he's got to play. That's the biggest challenge. We have a team that's ready to go. I mean, it's just like that shouldn't be a challenge if he's ready to play. What's inherent in that is that it sounds like maybe they have doubts that he's ready to play. And as far as why would they trade him, it's like they're all stocks and they don't stay the same value. They either go up or they go down. And some stay exactly the same, but it's rare. So as we get to learn these players, they get more valuable or less valuable uh, based on how they play. And so if they, for whatever reason, don't feel like he's going to be effective, then he's going to get less valuable. Why would they trade him? Because they don't believe his value is going up. They believe his value is going down. So they can take what they can get. Or if you think his value is going to go way, way up, you wouldn't trade him. I'd be really afraid to trade him because I just think I believe in the character of the person. And I think it's not rocket science. It's learning to play quarterback. It's decision making. It's really difficult. It's obviously not easy, but I think it can be, it can be it can be learned. I don't think everything. I don't know that all quarterbacks are born. I think you're developed a little bit, and so I just think he needs to play and get some development. But why I think he makes sense to move him is that I don't think that people here are ever going to be patient enough to endure it, and it's just going to be a S show. And I would rather them not go in this S show direction, because what if it just takes him a reasonable amount of time, which would be like a year and a half. That's a reasonable amount of time. There's gonna be a lot of people who are just like, soon as he plays poorly one day, get Brock in there.
Right.
And then it becomes this huge divisive, thing back and forth. And I'm sure the 49ers don't want any part of that. So it's like,
Larry, I don't know if I look at it that way.
there's a lot at play. There's a lot at play. There really is.
I think if he did play and he showed enough potential, I think people would be patient. I do. I think if he showed potential,
So they
when
won
he's
7
playing,
games this year, maybe struggling. You think that's
shoot, but
gonna? You don't think people are gonna lose their mind? I don't know. I'm not sure that Shanahan believes that he could live through, the full development curve of Trey Lance if it took him 2 years.
then why
Does
did he
Shanahan
draft
have
him?
2 years right now to finish 500 or below in this climate? And then he's going to come back in 3 years? I don't think so, man. I don't think so. And
I don't
he's
know
done a
if they
lot of
would
good
go
things, but you're
500 or
saying he's going to have
below.
2 years to.
I don't know if he would go 500 or below necessarily,
But
Larry.
if they
Like
did,
I don't know why his development has to be synonymous with losing. They've won so many games with mediocre quarterback play in the last 3 out of the last 4 years. The only guys they could really not win games with was Nick Mullins and CJ Beathard, and that's about as bottom tier as you can get in terms of quarterback play in the NFL. Probably somewhere next to one. No, I'm joking. I was gonna say Mariota, but I won't do him like that.
it's like Steve Young. I mean, he as soon as he got his chance to play, he didn't just get a chance to play; he had to win. And the same thing's going to happen with Trey. By the time he gets his chance to play, he will have to not just play; he'll have to win. I mean, it's
Glory
just the way it
asks
is.
us,
Just the
who's
way
the
it is.
49ers pick if they had a first this year? What do you think, Larry?
What's that? Who's their
Who's the
pick if they had a
49ers
one?
pick? Yeah.
Where would they pick?
I'm assuming he's thinking the 30s where they would pick, this year if
I'll
they
tell you who I'd take. If I had a pick in the top half of the first round,
uh-huh.
Middle of the first round, I'd probably take Michael Mayer out of Notre Dame.
No. We're talking about 30s, Larry. They finished in the NFC Championship game. You can't just be coming here and taking that 15th overall pick to go get your guy
Okay,
Michael Mayer.
if it was at the end of the first round, let's say it was 30, I would take the guy who and it's now the Saints pick, by the way. I would
Right.
take the guy they project to go there, Kalijah
Right.
Cansey from Pittsburgh, defensive lineman, 6 feet, 280, 7.5 sacks this year. Love that guy.
Okay, so I haven't studied defensive linemen. In fact, I haven't studied anybody besides the quarterbacks. So, Glory, we're going to go with Larry Krueger's answer for this one, and we're going to trust it. It's
Take that one to the
probably
bank.
a better answer than what I would have had anyway.
Or if you want edge rusher, Isaiah Foskey from Notre Dame. I think he's a pretty much a phenomenal pick too.
Okay, he's giving us
Isaiah
two.
Foskey.
2 for the price of 1. Larry is answering the question for me. He's that good
Thoroughly.
friend.
It's a
He's that
thorough
good friend
answer.
when you forget the homework in school that like whispers the answer in your ear so you can make the teacher think you also did your homework. That's what Larry just did for me right here.
That's right. A little Cyrano.
Glory's the teacher in this example. By the way, Glory. Yeah. No, but going back to our quarterback conversation, I'm sorry I interrupted what you had. You had one more point in there.
Did I?
Yeah, I think so. I went. You kind of had a pause in there, so I thought I could jump in with this question. But then, right as I jumped in, you were about to go to some other point in we never want to miss out on some Krug insight about the 49ers quarterback situation.
Well, I was just looking at where the Titans are on the cap, going they're hugged up against the cap.
Would you get Tannehill back?
No.
If you can get a restructure with Tannehill, would you get him back?
No. And I liked him at A&M. I'm an A&M fan, so I liked him at A&M, but I just no.
So you would just trust that Brock Purdy is going to be back week 1 no matter what?
No. No, I'm going after quarterbacks. I like Clayton Tune in the draft. I got 3 third-round picks. I know he'll be there.
But you're going to trust that a rookie third-round pick is going to be able to come in and start right away? If Purdy's not ready?
You got Trey Lance. You got Brock Purdy.
I thought we were discussing Tennessee because you were saying Trey Lance to Tennessee.
Well, I'm just saying if somehow John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan thought that Trey was not going to be a great player, let's just say, I would love to get that 11th pick in the first round. You could have your pick. You could go with Skoronski, the offensive tackle from Northwestern, who could be at Joe Staley.
But if Shanahan thinks, wait, Larry, I'm so confused. You could go
Joey Porter Jr. from Penn State.
Larry, I'm sorry. I have to ask this question.
Or Bijan Robinson.
I have to ask this question. If Shanahan thinks Lance is not that good of a player, I don't know how he could reach that conclusion after 4 games. But let's say he's reached that conclusion. Why would the Tennessee Titans then turn around and trade a first-round 11th overall pick for him?
Well, I think that what you heard today from John Lynch is their public stance on Trey. They like Trey. He didn't say anything that made you think that they don't like him. They love him. And so it's not about they want to move him. It's about
but
Tennessee's got Malik Willis and Tannehill, and they're hugged up on the cap, and they could use a cheap franchise quarterback. And if you want to trade for a really talented, quarterback on his rookie deal, but who's not a rookie and is ready to go, who you've seen and Rand Carthon knows personally, then, I think, every situation, just because you thrive in one spot doesn't mean you're going to thrive in another spot. And just because you don't thrive in one spot doesn't mean you're doomed not to thrive in another spot. Just because Trey might not be ideally, what Lynch told you today is that Trey's got to play and they're ready to win right now. And that's why it's a challenge. And it's a challenge because they feel like he's not quite ready. That's what he's telling you. So, so maybe he's not a great fit for the San Francisco 49ers in 2023. Maybe I'm reading that wrong, but maybe he is a fit for the Tennessee Titans, because he's the perfect quarterback.
I can't imagine trading the 11th overall pick for a guy whose contract is you have to make a decision on it in 1 year. And that decision includes that 5th-year option, which will probably give him near $20 million fully guaranteed. I can't imagine having to make that decision. And I wanted to go back to your last point.
You're Rand Carthon and you're running the Tennessee Titans, and look at that team. They don't have a good team.
So they need a quarterback. You trade your first-round pick for a quarterback who has not played in 2 years.
Here's the thing, Vish. They're just outside where I think the quarterbacks are going to go. So I think that they're going to have to get creative if they want a young quarterback. Now, the one thing I think we've learned here that I think everybody's learned is that the best time to get a young quarterback is early in your tenure, because now you've got the ability to invest those years and in the young quarterback. The Niners went for a raw young quarterback later, and when they had already built up their core and it was time to win, and now they're in that win now mode. Rand Carthon just got there. He could probably be a little bit more patient. I think it's a different situation. It's a new, fresh start.
Vrabel's been there for how many years? I do think Vrabel wants to now turn around and rebuild it. They've gone to the playoffs, 4 out of the last 5 years? This year it fell apart at the end, but they were close. They're tied up a lot of money to a lot of really old players.
I think once Tannehill threw the 3 picks in the playoff game, I think he dropped to a different status, don't you?
Maybe, but I also think they haven't given Tannehill anything to work with on the outside, and they traded the one really, really special player they had on offense in A.J. Brown, and to me, Derrick Henry is going back, or not going back. I think Derrick Henry is starting to hit the one thing that no one can outrun, which is the age and, the time and the attrition of playing in the NFL. But I actually do want to revisit one more thing, Larry, because I actually disagree with this idea that developing Trey Lance is synonymous with maybe winning 6 or 7 games. Because I don't I look at the 49ers and look at how little they play through the quarterback and how much they do for the quarterback. Heck, a lot of us were picking them to win, 10, 11, 12 games this year, even with Trey Lance starting. I don't see why we wouldn't do the same next year as well. I understand why Brock Purdy should be the starter. I understand why he will be the starter if he's healthy. But to me, like, that still means you still have a guy you believe in Trey Lance. Maybe he does do everything right this offseason. Maybe he kills it this offseason. Maybe Purdy isn't ready. But if Trey Lance kills it this offseason, or even if he doesn't, and he has to go through this year and a half long development, why does that mean the 49ers can only win 6, 7 games during that time? I don't look at it that way, Larry. I still think they would be a 9, 10 win team. I think they are a 9 win team, 10 win team with most quarterbacks in the NFL. In fact, I think the only quarterbacks they can't win with are the Beathards and the Josh Johnsons and the Mariotas and the Nick Mullins. And I don't want to group all of those guys together. Mariota is better than the latter three, but the point is, I think they're only incapable of winning with the worst quarterbacks in the NFL. You give them anybody that's, starter caliber or top 35, I don't see why they couldn't have a winning season with those guys as well. Like, and I do think if Trey Lance was showing development and showing growth game by game, week to week, I think a lot of the fan base would be excited, Larry. I really do. I don't think they would be impatient, but I could see where, your knowledge of the fan base might be a little bit better than mine just because you live out there and I don't. So
no, I just think that I don't think it's really the fan base as much as it is Shanahan and Lynch, and John Lynch just told you they're ready to go. They're ready to win right now. This is their Super Bowl window. You just said it. Their core is got maybe 1 year, maybe two. If they keep drafting well, they could extend that. But you're right. Their core's got a couple of years left. They're feeling the urgency. The Kansas City Super Bowl, when they got into that Super Bowl, they might have been a little early in some of the careers of some of their young players. Now those players have grown up, but if they're going to get it done, they got to get it done. And it's go time. It was this year, next year, maybe the year after. Yeah. So you're right. So their window's short, and I don't
Can
know.
I ask you a
We'll see
question
what they
then?
do. We'll see
Can
what
I
they
ask
do.
you a question
I'm
then?
not
'Cause
rooting for. I'm not rooting for dealing Trey, but I do understand it because it just it seems that his timeline may not jive with their timeline.
And okay, perhaps that's fair, and I have made that argument, and so I'm not going to disagree with it because I do think that his timeline from day one was that way. But Larry, if the pressure is on and the win now is non, which I agree with, right? We've stated it throughout the show. We aren't blind to the urgency John Lynch kind of showed during his combine press conference, and we read the quotes and the uncertainty it put surrounding Trey Lance, like, in some ways, but if that urgency does exist, I don't understand how necessarily then to me the only solution is the 49ers get a veteran starter because Brock Purdy is still a massive question mark to even come back at the start of this year. And I think that's the point that we're all or we have not all missing, because we certainly haven't missed it. You and I have talked about this ad nauseum in every single show that we've done together. But I guess it's the point that has not been discussed in this part of the discussion. The fact that he might not be back week one, and there's still a giant question mark surrounding him, given the serious nature of the surgery he has to go through. And when you're talking about that, like, to me, if you're talking about getting an overpriced veteran player or just hitting the season with a third-year player whose talent you believed in so much that you traded 2 1s for, and you then he got hurt, right? He got hurt. That's the only reason. We're 4 games into his career. I would still bet on that guy. Now, I understand if Purdy's healthy, why you would have to go with Purdy over that guy. But instead of getting an overpriced veteran, which in your case I think would be the solution, given Purdy's uncertainty too, I would much rather go with this guy and see what I have and give him a chance to see what happens. And that's where I disagree with John Lynch, because to me, the only thing I gleaned from John Lynch's presser about their plan at quarterback is that they're praying that Brock Purdy is ready and to be healthy week one. And praying is not a plan. Praying is hope. Hope is not hope and prayer. Those things are great. You can wish, you can do all of those things. Those aren't plans. And you have to have a plan at quarterback. And that's why I keep going back to the fact that why did he say he had a perfect opportunity there to commit and say Trey Lance is going to get that opportunity this year? Why did he say we don't know when he's going to get that opportunity? Why did he say that?
I just think that it sounds to me like they're saying they're going to keep their cards open. I don't think they'll make a move on Trey Lance until they have some indications that the surgery went well and that Brock's coming back. But once they know Brock's coming back, I think there's a very good chance. There's a lot of quarterbacks out there that they like, and I bet you they'll bring one in. And I just would not be shocked if they move Trey in a deal. I don't. I would not be in a rush to do that because I really would try to keep him and think long term, and I really like the person, and I would just. But they may want to recoup some of what they spent to get the asset and go in a different direction. And let's be honest, Trey's saying all the right things. I want to be a Niner forever,
Right.
but he needs to play. And to hear John Lynch say that when everybody knows that is true, I thought that was really telling, very telling. And it's what I know as somebody who's been around the game a little bit is that he needs to play. So any solution that goes forward where he's not playing this year is probably not a good solution for Trey. So what are you going to do? Is he going to beat out Brock and he's going to play, or is he not going to beat out Brock? And then what's going to happen?
I think that if you trade Trey Lance, you have certainty on one of two things. One of them, I believe you don't have certainty on, which is that you think Trey Lance isn't the quarterback that you traded up for. I don't know how you can have certainty on that because he has to actually play for you to have certainty on that. And he's only played 4 games. So none of us know that.
But
Like nobody knew what you had in
you
Brock
keep
Purdy
saying that.
until
But
he
here's the
actually
thing,
played.
Fish. Coaches evaluate practice.
I understand that, Larry, but
even
at
though
the same
you and I
time,
have seen 4 games, they've seen the practices.
I agree. I understand that, and I agree that's why they could have a certain opinion and perception. But even then, Larry, I mean, shoot, like, do you think they knew exactly what they had in Brock Purdy? Not until they actually
Yeah,
saw him against Miami and
I
play
think they
like
had a
that,
pretty
they
good
couldn't have
idea.
known.
I think they had a
Larry,
pretty good idea that he was special because they're smart
then why
football
did they
people.
bring back Jimmy Garoppolo?
Well, I mean, I'm not saying that they saw what he became because I don't think they knew about the mobility, Vish. I think the mobility surprised a lot of us. But as far as just a guy who'd played a lot of football that would not be wowed by the moment and would be able to come in and operate the offense, I think they knew that based on what they saw in the film and his career. But I don't think anybody saw the escapability that's high level. And that changes his equation quite a bit, I think.
Maybe I don't know. I thought
That's
his
what Lynch
quickness.
commented on.
I thought
He
his
said, "Oh, we didn't
quickness.
see the speed."
Maybe I thought his quickness was somewhat apparent at Iowa State. I guess his arm was a little bit stronger than I ever expected. I did not think he had an NFL caliber arm when I watched him in Iowa State, and they talked about the revs that he was able to add and the strength he was able to add. But let's say they did. Let's presume that. Okay, let's say they did see that coming. The second certainty then they would have. Let's forget the first certainty. The second certainty they should have to trade Trey Lance is that Brock Purdy is 100% the guy. How could you have that certainty, Larry? He's played 7 games in his career and he's injured now. And he's injured with a very serious injury. Gosh,
I
I
agree.
feel like as much as you can be excited about Brock Purdy, and I'm excited about Brock Purdy, he looked awesome in those 7 games. Nobody's going to diminish that. He played about as well as we've seen a rookie quarterback play, besides Dak Prescott or Justin Herbert probably over the last, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. He was truly awesome. But even then, how can you know you have exactly what you need at quarterback? The answer at 7 games, especially when that guy after 7 games is seriously injured to his throwing arm. And that's where I feel like you can have an idea, you can have confidence. And I certainly understand why, Brock Purdy, if he's healthy, he will start next year, no matter what's happening with Trey Lance. But I don't know how you can be so certain that he's the guy. Man,
Well, I mean, the guy he didn't lose. He had 13 touchdowns and 4 picks. He got, jailbreak blitzes against Miami. It was just they sent the house. He threw for 330 and like 4 touchdowns in his first playoff game. Won in Seattle, something the Niners never do. Beat Brady head to head. Stood up against Washington, beat them. Led him from behind on the road against the Raiders. I mean, the guy played well. The guy played well, but it's not even just. It's not that.
Okay,
Believe
can
me,
I
it's
can I
not that.
read
It's
you
about
another
who he
5 game
is.
stretch that way though? Can I talk about another 5 game stretch that way?
But it's
There
not.
was
It's
an 0-9 team who beat the number 1 defense, a historic Jaguars defense, by putting 44 on them at home. They won a last-minute game with the quarterback leading a drive down the field with receivers who were basically all no names at the time against the Tennessee team that made the playoffs. They went on the road at cold Chicago against a Bears team with a pretty good defense at the time and beat them on the road. Look, I thought Brock Purdy
that was
played
all
better than any.
garbage time. This was a playoff run.
I agree, and I don't want to compare the actual things of their play because I think it's easy to evaluate the quarterback outside of the offense, and I think Purdy played at a higher level than Garoppolo has played at any point, even at the earlier parts of the season this year when Garoppolo was playing arguably the highest level of his career. So that to me should be set in stone. I don't want to pretend like I'm diminishing Brock Purdy's achievement by comparing it to Garoppolo. At the same time, Larry, it's still a 7 game sample size. I don't know how you can be certain about a guy after 7 games, Larry. 7 games.
Well, I'm not certain. That's why I said that they should have 3 starting caliber quarterbacks, and they should pay the extra money and take it from other places on their roster to pay for 3 starting caliber quarterbacks, 3 quarterbacks that they believe they can win with. So I'm not 100% sure. I mean, I feel really good about Brock and where he's at. And, under normal circumstances, without this surgery to the elbow, I would expect him to get in year 2 stronger, more athletic, more sudden, more pro like, just better conditioned, with better mechanics, better knowledge of the offense, arrow firmly pointed up. And he already played at a really high level. So I feel really good about where he's at. But now, yeah, what makes this just complicates it dramatically is he had a dramatic injury to his throwing arm and he didn't have a ton of velocity to lose. So how much does he lose? Will have a dramatic impact on his career. So yeah, from that reason, for that perspective, we don't know what he is. But from a playing perspective, I feel like I know what he is. He played a lot in college. And if you watch his college film, a lot of the same things that you saw this year with the Niners, it's right there. You can see it. It's all right there. This guy, he's got moxie, he's got accuracy, he's got escapability. He's really, really smart. He knows how to break things down at the line of scrimmage pre-snap. He can turn his back on the defense and have spatial awareness where the defenders are, where in the route his receivers are. He makes quick decisions. He takes care of the football. I mean, come on. They
I
as soon as he went out of the game, they couldn't even get a play called.
No, and my bad there. I did you
No, not
mean
at all.
I didn't mean to. Yeah, okay. I won't disagree with that, Larry, to be honest. I won't disagree with any of that, but I would still like to see some sustenance. I'm tired of, 7 game resounding opinions about quarterbacks. To me, there's something in the NFL where we spend so much time,
Give me your
denigrating
number then.
these.
What do you need?
Give me 2 years. 2 years. If I see you 2 different seasons, I see you play really, really
All right.
well. I feel like I got something. Or unless you okay, and I'll admit my bias here as well. If you're a guy like Joe Burrow, like I thought Joe Burrow he is the best quarterback I've ever seen or evaluated in college football. After his one really, really explosive year, which was last year, I put him in the top 5 quarterbacks or top 6, 7 quarterbacks in the sport. I didn't need 2 years, is what I'm saying for that one. But that also had to do with where I was about him in college as well. So I'm giving you I'm giving you my gaps in objectivity there, Larry. I'm being honest with you. I'm being forthcoming on I do have certain gaps in my objectivity, but I'd like to see two different seasons. I would. I would. It
I
gives
mean, it's
me
fair enough,
so
fair
much of
enough.
an
But I mean,
idea.
I
Yeah.
expect you're going to see exactly what you saw, which is, both guys are going to play the way they played because that's the way they play. There'll be slight improvements, slight changes. I don't think you'll see dramatic changes in either guy. So you just got to decide, do you want them both? Do you want one, not the other? Who knows? I mean, that's the other thing. Is Trey the ideal backup for Brock? Is Brock the ideal backup for Trey?
True.
I mean, we'll see we'll see what it's just the way John Lynch talked today sounded the way the Warriors talked about James Wiseman like a month ago, and now he's in Detroit.
What did they get back for him, by the way?
I
What did they
know,
get back
I
for
know,
him?
I know, and
Did you let me ask you
I'd be
this.
very
Let me
fearful
ask
of
you,
that.
did you think that that's what they would have gotten back for James Wiseman?
No, no, not at all.
As a Pistons fans, I was kind of pissed off that they traded for him. I'll tell you that. I'm not going to lie about that.
Why?
I'm so sick of them getting these, bigs who play zero defense, who are athletic, and they just keep trading any player that develops ever so slightly for them. I understand Sadiq Bey, they weren't going to be able to re-sign, but he had a 50 ball for them, and they're trading him. They're putting zero talent around Cade Cunningham. Bagley and Wiseman, when they're healthy, is going to be the softest, worst rebounding front line in the sport. This is Detroit. This is where Ben Wallace and Rasheed Wallace played in my childhood with Antonio McDyess. And now they're
Wiseman
putting
last
out.
night. Wiseman last night, Vish, for your Pistons. 23 points,
I watched the game,
7
Larry.
rebounds.
I watched the game. He
9
runs
of
the
11
floor.
on field
He
goals
runs the
in
floor. He
27
had a couple
minutes.
of nice putbacks, but he makes little to no impact on the defensive end. He's not necessarily a physical presence. Like, yeah, cool. He's a 7-footer that, is end to end. I don't know. I'd like to see him with Cade Cunningham, but I was pretty sad that they traded for him. Also, I really want the Pistons to get Victor Wembanyama somehow. And what's the point of having James Wiseman?
Wembanyama, yeah, he's
Yeah.
going to be good.
AJ, our good friend here, says he's applying for the boombox job, guys.
What does that pay?
Probably really good, right?
you gotta be able to lift a certain amount. You gotta.
Yeah, 100%.
Big
But you
boombox.
get but when Steve Wilkes gets his head coaching job, you might become chief of staff there.
That's right.
Yeah. Wow, Larry, hour 30 minutes, just like that. Did you know it's been an hour and 30 minutes?
No. Are we
That's
done?
We do. I mean, I have to go into the city tomorrow for work, so I got to wake up 30 minutes earlier. I'm good with stopping here. Catch a couple extra Z's. What do you think? I still have to go work out. It's what these streams do. They build up so much adrenaline for me that I end up visiting the gym right after, and that's probably what I'm going to do right now at 10:42 p.m. I'm kind of a psycho that way, I guess.
Good deal, man. Good deal. Well, I'm going to watch the rest of Warriors Blazers. Have a good night. We'll see you maybe Thursday night.
Thursday, Friday, you name it. Larry, we have not talked about. Are you at 15K?
I don't know. Check. I don't think so. I think I'm getting close, though. Let me see. I'll tell you. We are getting close. 14,607. But I've had a couple sick days, so I've kind of slowed my pace.
Everybody, I know that you're probably already subscribed to Larry, but I'll say just for the formality, make sure you are subscribing for Larry. We need Larry's channel to really blow up. Larry's been putting out content did I miss a super chat? Sorry, Canham HH. I must have missed it. I'm sorry. You could just post your question down below. I'd love to answer it. I don't see.
Don't want to miss a super chat. It's hard. It's easy. It sounds like it would be hard to miss.
I see it. That's totally my fault. I really apologize, Ken Ham HHI.
Trey and Purdy, Wentz or Mariota are better than both. Well, who's better?
I think
Wentz and Mariota are better than Trey and Purdy.
Is that what you're saying, Canham HHI? We would love some clarification here.
Trey and
But I
Purdy.
would agree, Trey and Purdy, I'd probably take them over Wentz and Mariota today. Yeah, the upside of both players is way more tantalizing than Mariota, who I don't think highly
I'll
of,
tell you the
and
one
Wentz
that
I
I
don't
don't
think
like.
highly of.
I'm sorry. I don't like Matt Ryan. I don't want to go down the Matt Ryan
I think Matt
road.
Ryan's done. And I'm the biggest Matt Ryan fan.
He's
Larry,
so done.
I think Matt Ryan's a Hall of Fame quarterback. Like, I think he's one of the most underrated quarterbacks in my lifetime. He took two different head coaches and had the one seed. How many years did they make the playoffs with Mike Smith and with all those different
Can we
play
get
callers? He
Plunkett in
got
there
Dirk
first?
Cutter
Who's
a
got
job.
2 Super Bowls?
You could put Plunkett in there too if you want.
He's got 2 Super Bowls.
Are we just going to evaluate quarterbacks on Super Bowls, Larry?
I'm just saying, Matt Ryan has none.
At what point in his career was Eli Manning a better player than Matt Ryan, though? They played in the NFL simultaneously, and Matt Ryan was a better quarterback
You know,
every
these Super
single
Bowl
way of
things
the
kind of
year.
matter, I think.
It's a team achievement.
I
Why are we
know,
giving
but
the quarterback all the jazz for the team winning the Super Bowl?
all I'm just saying, it's like, as a guy who saw Jim Plunkett win 2 Super Bowls, I'll lose my S if Matt Ryan goes in before him.
What about if Eli goes
He
in
was an
before
MVP.
him?
He did
What
have a
if
great. See, I look at Matt Ryan kind of like Joe Flacco without the ring.
Larry, he's top 5 in what? Passing yards, completions,
They both had
attempts?
one big year. Did Flacco win the MVP?
No.
He had an awesome year though. He
Yeah,
had a
he had
great
an
run.
awesome playoff run.
But to me, I'll give Kyle a lot of credit for that Atlanta offense. They had the best first down. I think they gained like 9 yards per first down. They were
I
constantly
will
in second and
too.
short.
I will too. And maybe Matt Ryan at his peak was never an MVP level player like a Rodgers or a Brady or a Breeze or even a Roethlisberger. But man, you could argue Matt Ryan against anybody else. Him, Rivers, Romo was there for a while. Palmer was around there. Stafford was somewhere in that conversation. God, Larry, I mean, if you're talking about, yes, Shanahan, I agree. He elevated Matt Ryan, but it's not like Matt Ryan was some no one. I mean, he got Dirk
No, he
Cutter a
won an
head coaching
MVP.
job before Kyle Shanahan was there. He got Steve Sarkisian the job at Alabama, and he had statistically as strong a season with Sarkisian that second year when they didn't make the playoffs that he did his MVP season. The only difference was they won 4 games instead of, winning 10 games or 11 games and making it, that far in the playoffs. But I
I
don't
saw
know.
him too many times last year. I saw him against
Yeah,
Denver.
I think he's
Looked
done.
terrible. He's
I
done.
agree with you on that. Now, I guess I was bringing up my fandom and belief in Matt Ryan is more a way to show my objectivity on how much I believe in Matt Ryan and how resoundingly I'm saying no to Matt Ryan. But here you are, Krug. You're liking Matt Ryan, hating on you're liking Marcus Mariota, hating
Yes.
on Matt Ryan. What is
Yes.
going on, Krug?
I saw Rodgers said he's not going to San Fran. He said, I'm not
I
going to
did.
San Fran.
He just had a very enlightening experience, I think,
Cleanse. He had a
doing
deep
his
cleanse or
yeah,
whatever.
whatever he needed for his mental health, okay, I'm not gonna make fun of it. You do whatever you need to do. But apparently he's gonna come talk. He has a big podcast release. I saw it on Twitter. I'm not gonna listen to it, but I'm sure it will be circulating social media tomorrow. Every bizarre thing that he would have said in there. Because he is a very interesting character for sure.
All right, brother. We'll talk to you Thursday night. Maybe let me see. I've got you down. I got you penciled in for Thursday night. Let me just double check my
Yeah, the Krug
calendar.
schedule. By the way, does anybody schedule more streams and do more streams than you, Larry? I don't
You
think
know who I'm
so. That's
streaming
just
with
another
on
reason.
Thursday? I'm
Who?
streaming with Wayne Breezy.
Okay.
You know Wayne?
Of course I know Wayne. Great guy, great content creator.
So Wayne, this is our first foray into Wayne Breezy, and then I'm thinking maybe I don't know what I was thinking maybe 5:30 something like that.
5:30 Pacific,
Yeah,
Thursday.
yeah.
You
You
got
down
it.
for that?
You got it. I'm good with that. I will actually be back here tomorrow on the Vish Kumaran show, as we
Nice.
call it. I'm doing a very in-depth stream with two very very smart guys on Twitter that I talk to a lot. Nick Martin, who covers the Steelers, and Billy Marshall, who covers the Panthers. They have a deep interest in the draft. They spend a lot of time studying it, watching film. on the draft, and we're going to be going through the draft quarterback. So I still got some last minute
Cool.
stuff to look at, but we're going to be having a very in-depth conversation on the subtleties of these different players' games, what we think they do well, what are our concerns. It's going to be it's a conversation I'm very excited for, and I'm very excited for a lot of people to hear their insight because they're both incredibly smart, but also incredibly hardworking and studious, and they are very passionate about the draft, and they spend a lot of time studying it and going through film. So I'm very excited to bring that. That will be here tomorrow, I think at 8:30 Central, 6:30 Pacific. So make sure you tune into that. Make sure you're liking and subscribing here, by the way. It really helps the algorithm. Comment down below, what you think the 49ers need to do this offseason. What do you think about John Lynch's combine presser? And, just comment it something to comment just because it helps the algorithm out. But wow, Larry, what a show.
Dude, good stuff. I should mention
Thank you.
for you, Fish, you talk about doing a quarterback segment. I had Eric Froton from NBC Sports, the former NFL scout, on this weekend,
Right.
and we broke down the quarterbacks. I thought there was some good stuff in there. Also, tomorrow on my channel on the Krug Show, Jordan Elliott checks in from
The
Indy,
combine.
and Jesse Naylor's on tomorrow night from the other side of the country, right around
Last
seven
Second
thirty.
Sports. Make sure you're subscribed there too.
Yeah, so it's gonna be kind of a big Wednesday, kind of a big
It's a
Wednesday.
big Wednesday.
I'd
Yeah.
like to hit I'm not Home Depot. I'm not sure if I'll have enough time. Not sure if I'll have
I
enough
see. Cause
time.
it's a big hump day. You got a few
Thinking
streams
about
going on
Pottery
there.
Barn, but not sure if I'll have enough time.
Larry, Pottery Barn or Home Depot? We need to get you some more interesting shopping in there.
That was my Will Ferrell. Yes, we'll be a big Saturday at Home Depot. Not sure if I'll have enough time. Oh God. I met Will Ferrell. Did I ever tell
Appreciate.
you when I met Will Ferrell?
No way.
Yeah, so he was doing a morning show at the radio station, and I literally had stayed up the night before watching Semi Pro with one of my kids, and and this was like on a Sunday night. It's Monday morning. I go into the green room at the radio station, and this guy swings around in this swivel chair, and it's him. And the very first thing I thought to myself, and it's just ridiculous because I'm looking back on it, guy's been in every movie there is. I'm like, Jackie Moon. I said,
I would have said, Dad, what are you doing? It's Shark Week.
what's that from?
Step Brothers,
Step
the
Brothers.
greatest Will Ferrell movie.
Jackie Moon. I'm like, it's Jackie Moon. And he goes right into Jackie Moon, starts doing, then he introduced himself, and he's on the morning show, and we're talking. I mean, the guy could not have been cooler, down to earth, very cool. It was very cool. Very cool.
So it
Sometimes you
was a
meet somebody
great
who's famous
moment.
and you're like disappointed. This time I met somebody who's famous and I was like, God, that guy's cool. He's a cool guy.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I hope that when I do meet you in person, Larry, I have the same feeling.
Yeah, I don't think so. You'd be like, oh Christ, that guy? My
I'm gonna
God.
be I'm gonna be I'm gonna be a little bit intimidated to be in the presence of at that point what I would assume because we should be near the off season then in June, July. Mr.
Camp. You're
20K
gonna
on
come out for
YouTube, Larry
camp.
Krueger. Yes, I'm hoping to. But I at that point you would be Mr. 20K on YouTube. So you would be a pretty huge deal there. I mean, forget 95.7 the game, KNBR, who you are on Twitter. You would have 20K on YouTube.
20K on YouTube. Onward and upward.
There we go. There we go. There you have it, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for joining. As always, appreciate it. Please like, subscribe, comment down below. Kruger and I will be back. Can I call you Kruger? That kind of flowed. I was going to call you Krug for the
My
Krug
friends usually
show.
call me Krug, but you call me
Yeah, I
whatever
like
you
Krug
want.
better. I like Krug better.
Yeah.
Krug. Let me be respectful given your age and stature. Larry
Stop.
Krueger of 95.7 The Game will be back, and of at the Krug Show on YouTube. We'll be back next Tuesday for our usual stream. I will be on with Larry on Thursday at 5:30 Pacific, 7:30 Central, and tomorrow at 8:30 Central, 6:30 Pacific. Stay tuned for an awesome quarterback stream, and I'll see you next time.